All right. We are on week 6 now. This is the week starting yesterday was the 13th of February. So we are officially having 6-2 due this week. We had some pretty good reps with 6-2 on Thursday, and I think there's a lot of confidence there. That's not me prefacing, and now we're done with it, so good luck. No, I am thinking that what will be good is by the end of this week, we'll have already started on 6-3 and FIFO material, and we'll start to see a little bit of all this buildup that I've been putting into what FIFO is going to be like, and start to make sense of it. I worry I built it up too much is ultimately what I'm trying to say, and maybe instilled dread because I keep talking about, oh, well, FIFO is different. And so every time you have a problem that you get wrong or that takes extra steps beyond what you think in weighted average, you're like, oh, but wait, that was hard. But FIFO, he says it's going to be harder. It's like the boss level. I don't want that to be what you're thinking. But yeah, by the end of this week, I think we'll have a chance to introduce both of them pretty well. And maybe even today, if we don't have much more we want to go over on 6-2, I don't get many requests, and I'm satisfied with the things that we've gone over. I'm happy to start talking about FIFO and putting some flesh on this skeleton of how it's different. I did make some changes to the textbook, which really are relevant to 6-4. At the very end, I changed the figure and added an extra section, which it covers what I usually say in person anyway, that extra section. It's a different way of looking at what we do in step 3 of FIFO, which is what we cover in 6-4, that quiz. So it's laid out there, and I'll talk about it maybe in class today. So let's go ahead and start on 6-2 here and just pull up some questions. And I'll go ahead and look at the ones I want to look at, or take requests from whichever ones you want to look at. So we are in the weighted average method, and in the weighted average method we use a few equations to get to where we're at. We use TEU of, let's just say DM, whatever cost category we're talking about, is units completed plus ending WIP equivalent units, meaning ending WIP units times percent complete. And that's all with respect to direct materials, because that's what the TEU we're getting at. TEU stands for total equivalent units, meaning the total equivalent units we did work on this period, or that we're counting as having done work on this period. I'll start making that distinction because it'll be important later down the road. And then we use that as the denominator. And we have, in this case, we're doing direct materials, right? Beginning WIP, direct materials costs, this is a dollar amount, plus current period direct materials costs, also a dollar amount. That's the numerator. And that gives us our direct material cost per equivalent unit. So we have a rate now. And then 6-2 is where, just to review, we're going over the last step, and some comprehensive problems take us through multiple steps, including the last step. The last step where we then say we want to answer either what is DM in ending WIP? Since I've been talking about DM the whole time, I'll just say that's the question. Or what is the DM cost in ending WIP? Or what is DM cost for units completed and transferred out? Or just units completed. Either way, it's the same. A little better, I guess. All right, so these questions are gonna focus on that third step 3 here, where we just take our rate here and multiply it by some equivalent unit. Units completed equivalent units are relatively easy because they're all completed 100%. So the number of units completed is the number of equivalent units that were completed. And ending WIP here, we need to multiply it by ending WIP equivalent units to get the direct materials cost in ending WIP. All right, just get ourselves reaccustomed and reviewed. So let's look at this question right here is fine. It's a step 3 question. We have direct materials are all added at the beginning of the process. We have a direct material cost for getting WIP, $36,000. We have direct materials per equivalent unit rate of $4.90. Okay, so that's the product of step 2. That's the end result of step 2. So we already did, or somebody did for us, they calculated TEU, and they put TEU in the denominator underneath the 36,000 beginning WIP direct materials cost, plus whatever the current period direct materials cost was, and they ended up with 4.9 as the rate, $4.90. We have completed units here of 26,750. And then there's a note here saying that ending WIP has 7,500 units that are 35% complete with respect to conversion cost. Oh, sorry. Now, how complete are those ending WIP units with respect to direct materials? Just as a quiz. 100% complete, because all direct materials are at the beginning, meaning once they touch the factory floor, they're all considered 100% complete with respect to direct materials. All right, now the question stem says, using the weighted average method, how much is the direct materials cost of units completed and transferred out? So that's this style of question right here. And we have to take our rate and multiply it by the equivalent units of whatever we're asked about. In this case, equivalent units in units completed, which is nice and easy because they're all 100% complete, hence the name completed. So we're going to take this 26,750, multiply it by the 4.9, and not get distracted by any of the other numbers out there that are tempting. Cool. Let's do that on the Excel sheet here real quick. This is we have 26,750. Oh, 26,750 as our units completed. We have 4.9 DM per equivalent units. So nice and easy. Should be 131,075. This is DM cost for units completed and transferred out. I'll leave it like that. Now, if we erroneously included this in the calculation somewhere, but we get one of the other answer choices. Yeah, that distractor right there, it happens to be if you added in $36,000 beginning WIP, which you might be tempted to do after we learn the procedure for FIFO. But at this point, you're like, why would I even do that? Good. That was a test and you passed. Good. Don't do that. And then these, I'm not sure where. These are 39,000 apart as well. 36,000 apart, excuse me, as well. So one of them includes the 36,000 and the other, I'm not sure what that number is from. Maybe it's also adding in the 7,500 units into this, or the equivalent 7,500 times 35% plus that, and then that multiplied by 4.9. I'm not sure. Yeah, well, because we're not asking, it's just asking about the units completed and transferred out. So separately, we could figure out how much those cost. 7,500, how much direct materials cost is in there. And the different questions will ask that. So this is units in ending WIP, and they are 100% complete. With respect to direct materials, so 1 there. So we have ending WIP equivalent units for DM is 7,500. So we can multiply that by the 4.9. And so this is our DM cost in ending WIP right there.
So they're not complete at all. Even though direct materials are added, we still don't include it.
Yes. So those ending whip units, they have all the direct materials, sure, but the units themselves aren't completed yet. Yeah. That's a good question. Yeah. Somehow they ended up being counted as this is still work in process at the end of the period. Something's incomplete about them. Even if one of the different styles of cost is fully complete, something isn't all the way there yet. Okay. Does this feel okay? This is manageable and bite size. Good. Okay. Kind of ruins the red herrings I throw in there when I'm like, don't pay attention to them, but it's a big test pool. Don't worry. You know, plenty of opportunities to chase red herrings. That would, I guess, if you wanted to do that, and yeah, have that. Okay, let me skip over this for now. This is a question that does this calculation right here. So this is the answer we wanted. This was just extra, but it's just asking for the total cost of ending whip. We can come back to it if you want. Let's do this one because there's more distraction, and it also is asking ending whip, so maybe that'll get our fix for ending work in process calculations. So step 3 is we're looking for total cost, which means both the direct materials and the conversion costs. We can't just okay, so we need both the direct materials and the conversion costs. We'll start from there. So this is Wikipedia Brown question. You want me to give you a minute and you try it? I saw a nod or two. Okay, let me give you a minute. You try it out. See how you go flying solo on this. I'm going to switch the sides of these two real quick, just to make it harder on you. There we go. That helps the video. It's got a cutout in the bottom right-hand side. All right. Who has an answer? Who got an answer? You don't have to say it. Just got an answer. Who's still working on an answer? Okay. I'll give him a little more, a few more seconds here. 15, 30 seconds more. How many have an answer now? 1, 2. How many still working on an answer? 1 more. Okay. So, what do we get for this one? I'll scroll. Well, how about this? I scroll down. You see if your answer's in the answer choices. Answering the answer choices? Okay, which one? Willing to share? Anthony. Great. How'd you get that? That's right.
I found the equivalent units for both direct materials and conversion costs.
Okay.
And I multiplied that by the respective cost per equivalent unit and then added those together.
Excellent. And you successfully avoided being distracted by all this jazz right here. Good. Which, those are important numbers for certain calculations, but part of it is I'm trying to get you to locate where you are in the process of process costing. And by giving you already step 2, all you have to do is this step 3 part of the calculation, which ending work in process specifically, we're looking for not just DM total cost in ending work in process. So we need to know, like you said, we have 68 times 75%, which gives us 51 equivalent units in ending WIP. And multiply that 51 by the 100 direct materials dollars per equivalent unit. And then we can do the same thing. And then we end up with $5,100 for direct materials in ending WIP. And then you take 68 times 0.6. I thought it was 40.8, something like that. I think that's the number. That's equivalent units in ending WIP. And then you multiply that by the 400 up there. And that gives you the remainder, which I don't remember off the top of my head, the remaining amount. That gives you 16,320. And you add the 16,320 plus the 5,100 to end up with the right answer. So real quick, just catch up in Excel with what we said we did. Those are the equivalent units now, ending WIP equivalent units. And this is percent complete. Oh, if I could spell it. And then we have our rates already provided for us. So I don't want to do it that cut. This is our, I want to sum them. I wanted to make it weird. That's what I wanted. Ending WIP total cost. Separate. Okay, so the formatting is kind of fun there, but that's what we got ultimately. I wanted to label this, and since I put everything on the right-hand side, I didn't really want to do this weird, this being here, because I wanted a label there. Maybe I can find a different way to do that for another problem. Okay, questions about that one? Okay, yeah.
What if it said total cost of units completed? How would you find the units completed?
So good question. Yeah. So this one said there are questions that are like that. If you have one on your one of your attempts, then that's very likely. If it's exactly set up like this problem, we have the units completed given to us. Yeah. It's hidden in there. It's hidden in there. And you can do this. Now we have the units completed. We can multiply the rates by each of these. And because they're all 100% complete, it's the same number for both direct materials and conversion costs. So we could sum the two rates and just have $500 times the 14,500. Just do one multiplication, and that would be the cost of units completed. So in this case, I don't want to label them combined rates. I'll even do the summation in case we were referencing this later. And then we have units completed. So it'd be 7.25 million in this problem with this data set, this fact pattern. Okay. Good question. Good. Yeah. Okay. Requests? What questions do you want to see? How many of no guild associated and the camera's not looking at you. So how many of you haven't tried 6-2 yet? Okay, so at 25, 35%, maybe half even, if we count the fact that there might be some non-votes, Okay, well then that's hard to ask for requests if you haven't looked at it yet. If you have, feel free to ask a request here. I think we leave that open for another couple minutes, and I'll search for one. Let's try one more at least. I think a comprehensive kind of open answer might be a good way to go, because that's of 6-2. It requires the most steps. I don't want to say harder, just requires the most steps, and that thereby makes it easier to get wrong. More opportunities to get it wrong. So how about this one here? I think this will be good. We don't have rates given to us. We have costs. These look like numerators to me. We have information that I can build a units version of the T account, and then from that get units completed and ending WIP equivalent units to get a TEU denominator. Okay, so I can build a rate from these bullet points, and it's asking for total cost of units completed and transferred out. So then I can go back into, when I calculate a TEU, look at units completed, and from there multiply my rates. Okay, so that's the basic outline of what I'm going to do. So let's do that. And this is the open answer comprehensive problem. Total cost units completed, as opposed to asking just the direct materials costs or the conversion costs. So first of all, let's build our T account. I'll label it this time. We have 49 in beginning WIP. I'm going to move it over. Okay, and they are 44% complete with respect to conversion costs. Direct materials are added at the beginning of the process, which means therefore they are what percent complete with respect to direct materials? 100%. Yeah. Okay, and then we have 679 units that we started this period. And we have 17 units in ending WIP. They are 33% complete with respect to conversion costs, and they also are 100%. Same rule. They're 100% complete with respect to direct materials. So we can calculate our units completed, adding together units started and beginning WIP, subtracting away ending WIP. We must have completed 711 units. It's like the law of conservation of units in process costing. To make it sound like we're fancier and more sciencey than we really are. Yeah, that's our units completed, which is part of TEU. And we now have, we can put that in there. We can also figure out ending WIP equivalent units with respect to direct materials and with respect to conversion costs. So we have the 17 units in ending WIP, and they are 100% complete with respect to conversion costs. Oh, that didn't need to be that way. So there are 17 equivalent units. And the 17 units that are 33% complete with respect to conversion costs, I think I said that right earlier too, right? Lead us to 5.61 equivalent units with respect to conversion costs in ending WIP. So now we have our TEU for DM and our TEU for CC is units completed plus whatever the ending WIP equivalent units is. And now I can make it absolute for fun. So we're taking units completed plus ending WIP equivalent units, just like it says in the equation right here, to get TEU for the two respective types of costs that we're looking at. Okay, so those are going to be our denominators. Our numerators, and this is current DM, current CC. This is beginning WIP DM, beginning WIP CC. So we can take these in the numerator, just like it says right here, beginning with direct materials cost, current period direct materials cost, and divide that by the total equivalent units, which we calculated just a second ago with respect to direct materials. And we have $9.59. We're not going to round it. Excel can handle lots of digits. $9.59 of direct materials cost per equivalent unit that we worked on this period. Okay, now we can do the same thing here, and I think I can go just down. Yeah, we're summing beginning with CC, beginning with conversion cost is a dollar amount, and current period conversion costs in the numerator, and dividing by the purple, the denominator, which is our TEU with respect to conversion costs. We end up with $9.33 of conversion cost per equivalent unit. We've got our rates. That's great. And we can go ahead and apply those to the units completed, which we calculate way up here, because it's asking for the total cost of units completed and transferred out. So let's do it. The rate times the units completed. I'll make that absolute. This is DM cost in units completed, or 4 units completed. CC 4 units completed. If I wrote CC cost, one of you would tell me about it. I know you'd be like, but that says conversion costs cost. You're right. You would be right if you said that. So I try my best to respect that. Okay, so some of these should be the answer. So that should be our total. Oh, right here. Total cost of units completed. Okay. We do all 3 steps. $43 and $44 here. Yeah. So it's the two cost numbers here in the numerator divided by the TEU. And it's the same thing down here, just all the CC designated cells. Yeah. Taking those rates, multiplying them by units completed for each of those. The 711. And making sure we don't say, oh, I need to multiply them by the total equivalent units somehow. No, that was step 1. That's way back. We're done with TEU. We can forget about that. We figured out units completed to get to TEU, and we're going to use that number again, 711. But that doesn't mean we need the whole TEU or anything like that again. If we did that, it would lead to a lot of double counting, extra costs. Okay, how's that feeling? Saw thumbs up? Okay, so we have about a half hour going over 6-2. I think, let me pause for a minute. Other requests we have? Yeah. Yeah, let's see if we have one like that here, and if not, we'll fetch one. So this one says conversion cost. So is there, if there's a specific one, can I ask, does it provide you with rates, or is it a comprehensive one like the one we did before just now? It's comprehensive, but it asks for anything. Let's fetch another. Let's fetch more problems and see if we can't get something like that. And I saw you had a hand up, so we'll get to you in just a second here. Okay, more comprehensive. So not quite what we're looking for. Still units completed and just direct materials. Okay, let's just try again. Well, this one is as close as we've gotten so far. Is that all right? And we'll go ahead and calculate the direct materials as well, and then get the total cost. So we'll get the answer for this, and then also make sure we get the answer if we were doing that exact question as you phrase it. All right, so we're going to make it be a total cost one for ending work in process. It's a comprehensive total cost. We're going to make it that way anyway for ending work in process. All right, so the department uses weighted average method, process costing. All direct materials are added at the beginning of the process. This department has the following data for this month. All right, so we have the same initial 3 bullet points that give us information about the units and their percent complete. And we also have this that helps us discern how much the direct materials percent completes are. They're all 100% complete. And we have our 4 cost figures right here. 2 beginning WIP cost figures for our 2 different styles of cost, and then our current period cost figures for our current period costs. And I am sorely tempted to copy over up till here and just update. So I'm going to do that. We have 236 beginning WIP units. They are 40% complete with respect to conversion costs. And again, by rule here, if all direct materials are added at the beginning of the process, then those units must have had their direct materials added already. They're 100% complete with respect to direct materials. That's what the all in this sentence means, 100%. So we have 7,025 units started, and we end up with 231 units in ending work in process that are 42% complete with respect to conversion costs. And again, by rule, all the direct materials had to have been added to these 231 because they got started. They're still in process. So they are 100% complete with respect to direct materials. So we end up with the units completed now of 70/30, which is, again, beginning WIP units plus units started minus ending WIP units. That's our units completed, which is going to play a role down here in our TEU calculations here. So we need our units completed, and we also have our ending WIP equivalent units with respect to direct materials. 1 times 231, the number of units in ending WIP times the percent complete. So it's just being 231, great. And that 231 times 42% gives us the 97.02 ending WIP equivalent units with respect to conversion costs. All right, now we're going to follow the TEU equation and take our units completed, plus, in this case, for direct materials, plus the direct materials ending WIP equivalent units, to get it's absolute. That's not, it's not working. Make that reference down there. Okay, that might be true of another one too. I think this one was absolute. Nope. Anyway, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Okay, so this is 7,030 plus 231 gives us 7,261. That's the denominator, the total equivalent units for direct materials that we're going to be spreading the costs of direct materials over. And then that 7,030 plus 97.02 gives us 7,127.02 equivalent units. That's the total equivalent units with respect to conversion costs. All right. Now, let's copy over 1150, beginning WIP with respect to direct materials. Beginning WIP conversion, 1,150 beginning WIP direct materials costs. 891 beginning WIP conversion costs. 13,328 current period direct materials costs, and then 12,353 current period conversion costs. So our direct materials is going to be direct materials rate is going to be calculated the same way as it was in the previous problem. We have our direct materials beginning WIP plus our current period direct materials in the numerator and our TEU in the denominator. We end up with $1.99 of direct materials cost per equivalent unit of work that we did today, this period, I mean. And conversion cost, likewise, just switching over to the conversion cost version of the numerators and the conversion cost version of TEU, we end up with $1.80, rounds to $1.86 if we were rounding it to cents, $1.86 conversion cost cent charge per equivalent unit. Okay, so now we need to take those rates and apply them to the ending WIP equivalent units. we've got this is DM dollars over equivalent units. That's the term for these rates here. So if we multiply them by an equivalent unit number, it will give us the dollars in that category of equivalent units, in ending WIP equivalent units in this case. So we're going to get the ending WIP equivalent units out here. We're just going to copy them from up here. Copy them over. We have our ending WIP equivalent units with respect to direct materials is 231, which we got right here. We multiplied 231 ending WIP units, physical units, times the 100% complete that they are, means that there are 231 equivalent units. And we can take that and multiply it by the rate, and that gives us the dollar amount in ending WIP with respect to direct materials. This is direct material cost in ending WIP, $460.60, with a little rounding remainder. Little remainder there, we'll round off. And we can do the same thing now for conversion costs. Take the conversion cost rate, multiply it by ending WIP equivalent units with respect to conversion costs. We end up with $180.29 in ending WIP. Yeah, what's that, Peyton?
That's for like total ending WIP.
Mm-hmm.
You just add those two together.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Add those. This is the total cost in ending WIP. Yep. So given the way it's phrased literally in this question, it's just this $180.29. But the way you were asking the question, and you Peyton as well, it's $640.89 because it's the total cost that we're looking at here. Does that make sense? Yeah.
It said all direct materials are added, but units are 50% complete with respect to conversion costs. On your problem, would you put a 0 on both ones?
Yeah, we'd have to. Yeah, neither the beginning WIP nor the ending WIP units have crossed that 50% threshold. So it'd be 0 and 0. And so our numbers would all change. There'd be no direct materials cost in ending WIP because they haven't received any direct materials. There's no macaroni or dumplings. There are no dumplings in that pot of boiling water, almost boiling water at the end of the period. Yeah. So I'll undo those. So we still have record of what we did. Good question. Yeah. Good one, Cooper. Yeah. Okay. Now, Corey, you had a request or a question?
I was just gonna say one we haven't seen, one we haven't seen.
Okay. Oh, just any that we haven't seen yet? Oh, okay. My pick. So let's look at this one. Just as a quick thought exercise. So we have, first of all, the question stem is weighted average method asking for direct materials cost of units completed and transferred out. All right, so to get that, we need a rate times units completed in this case. Since that's the equivalent units of units completed, is units completed. It's the same thing because it's 100% complete. And the first thing we can do is look for those two things. I found a rate, a direct materials rate, but I don't see any units completed. I have ending WIP units. I have information about the percent complete those ending WIP units are. And I have information about beginning WIP. But I was as careful as I possibly could be to make sure that you couldn't figure out how much units completed were from that information. So this is one where I'm keeping you honest, as it were. I don't want to. That's the phrase in my head when I think of this. It's one where you don't have enough information to complete the question. I went to the trouble of bolding this so you don't say, well, other questions put completed units right here. I try my best to make it a point when it's different, and that difference is going to make a difference in how you do the problem. If it's a pointless difference, like I spelled the name of the company differently, I'm not going to bold that. Yeah, so we don't know how many units were started this period, so we cannot figure out how many units were completed this period, and we can't tease out from the rate either because we don't know how much current period direct materials costs were. I was careful to make sure there were at least two variables, so we couldn't couldn't solve the equation yet.
Can we do it as though the ending web units is completed units?
Yeah, just do this question, but like with 5052, 50502 as the units completed. Sure. And we'll get one of these answers, I'm sure. So this is as what if okay, so we have a rate $5.12. I'm pointing to this concept right here. We have a rate for direct materials cost per equivalent unit, and if 50,502 units were units completed, put a little asterisk there for fun, then it's just as simple as multiplying them then. Yep. And it would be, oh man, I missed out. I didn't include that as one of the potential. I'm not on my A game with this question here. No, I think these are, wow. I think they have to be incorporating the beginning whip or something, or the direct materials beginning whip cost here. I'll work on the distractor. I'll make a note of that. Harder distractor choices. That's what they're called. It's the ones that aren't the right answer, the distractors. Okay. Sorry, I don't know if Corey, was that good enough as one we haven't done yet? It's kind of a weird one I picked.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. So how about we say we'll take a look at 6-2 again on Thursday. And right now what I'll do is I'll start to talk about FIFO. Kind of stop building up the suspense about it and start like, this is not as hard as I'm building it up to be. Talk about it. That sentence didn't make sense, but I meant it the right way in my head. So just give me credit. All right, so if you've been following along the textbook as we've been going, you've been skipping over different sections. So you read this one for step 1, and you skipped over FIFO equivalent unit step 1 right here, which is what in 6-3 we covered that. 6-3 is what we covered. And then you read 6.4.1 for step 2 with weighted average rates, and then 6.4.2 for weighted average step 3. And then you skipped over 6.5 entirely because it has the word FIFO in it. So let's go look at those. In fact, let's go back to a tale of two methods up here. 6.2.2. All right, so basically the idea is we have this information, we need this information because we have to have it to get the dollar amounts to balance in our balance sheet and then to flow eventually over correctly to the income statement at a little later point in the closing cycle. The accounting cycle, the closing of accounts, the accounting cycle. Okay, so in the weighted average method, we're just going to treat these dollar amounts as if they're a dollar. A dollar is a dollar is a dollar, whether it was from last period carried over into this period through beginning WIP, or a dollar we incurred this period. A dollar is a dollar is a dollar, and we're just going to treat it all as the same and then distribute it out based on the equivalent units in these two categories through TEU and the rate. Great. With FIFO, it says first in, first out. Now, if we were tracking units, we would know exactly when they got started and finished. And we'd be like, well, obviously you just sort the Excel spreadsheet in ascending order, and then that's the first in, and that must be the first out. We're not tracking anything in process costing. So the only thing that's first in is beginning WIP. So FIFO means treat beginning WIP differently. That's in this case, because we're tracking nothing else. So it's not like if you're trading stocks, you're doing investing, and you get your your 1099, and it's like, well, this is when you bought the stock and for this amount, and this was the number of shares, and these are the different purchasing amounts, and then you adopt the FIFO method, and they're like, oh, well, that means you sold these shares first when you sold later, and those next, and so on and so forth. Again, we're not tracking nearly that closely. We're not tracking anything except tallies at the end. We know the tally of dollar amounts at the end, and we know the tally of units in the different categories and their percent complete. So all we're doing is we're treating beginning WIP costs differently, and that changes a few things about each of the 3 steps. I was thinking about how to express this, and one of the things I thought was it's almost like, well, let's start with the example that I gave about paper airplanes. In the ending WIP in paper airplanes, we have 100 paper airplanes, and let's say each paper airplane takes 4 folds to complete. And each of the 100 paper airplanes had 1 fold completed. So we have 25 equivalent units of paper airplanes. If we had those 100 folds concentrated on just 25 paper airplanes, we have 25 complete paper airplanes. And so that ending WIP will become the next period's beginning WIP, right? So that's why I'm bringing that back up. With weighted average, it's as if we're buying 25 generic folds. We're allowing this period to be charged the beginning WIP cost for just 25 folds anywhere. We're going to it's not specific to those 100 paper airplanes. We just have a right to have a 25 or 100 folds done somewhere among the different paper airplanes. We do that next period. With FIFO, we are specifically saying, no, I want those 100 paper airplanes. I'm going to pay this specific amount for it from last period, and I want those specific paper airplanes with their 1 fold each. And they're the first ones in because they were there at the moment the clock struck midnight. And so I'm going to say, well, we have to finish those up first, therefore they're the first out. And then anything we incur this period, we're going to figure out what that, we're going to use those costs to figure out all the rest of the stuff. I actually said it slightly wrong there, but I'll correct it later. So what I say here is I say something like a carpool lane. They have like a special carpool lane. There it is. That the beginning WIP costs go directly over to units completed. The cost of units completed. And at the very end, that's one of the things we're going to do. That means we're going to do all our calculations here, and then at the end we're going to add in the beginning WIP costs. That's one of the things that happens. Also, it means that we're not going to include these costs here because we need them for down here. You want to double count these costs, have them in the rate, and also be added at the end. That's not how it works. And we have to change our TEU calculation. I really want a better marker. Let's try green. Well, if I push hard enough, it's okay. So TEU, and I'm not going to put the subscripts here. It's just for some type of cost. Let's say direct materials or conversion costs. It's going to equal now units completed minus beginning WIP equivalent units plus the ending WIP equivalent units. It's very, very similar. Oh, not far enough. That's very similar to this, except that we have an extra term here. So instead of units completed, we have units completed minus beginning WIP equivalent units. Because we have to say, okay, those 100 paper airplanes with their 1 fold each, which whatever it costs us in terms of labor, time, and overhead, they get to keep that. And so we're not going to consider we're not going to consider that 25 airplanes worth of work done last period as the part of the equivalent units of work done this period. We're going to back that out by subtracting it out of units completed. And so let me see if I can do a diagram here. And I'll just get this. It's fine. And I'm going to try it one more time to get a better one. Red. Okay, so we have some beginning whip units. 6. One more. 10. Let's say we have 10 beginning whip units and they're 40% complete. So this is I guess what I'm saying is we have one beginning whip unit and it's 40% complete. That's what I meant to do with this. All right, so we have, this is our one beginning whip unit, 40% complete. And then we add, I'm going to do the whole thing just for fun. 10 boxes, and we'll do it twice. We'll add 2 units. We start 2 more units here. Great. And we also have 1 in ending whip here. So we started 2, and we have 1 in ending whip. So we had to have completed 2. So we're going to take this work done last period, this 40% of 1 unit, and we're going to treat it very differently. It gets to keep its costs. And then we also have, let's say these are 60% complete, these ending whip. In weighted average, we just kind of grab that away, grab the costs away, and treated beginning whip as if it's just any other unit that we're working on. With FIFO, it gets to keep its own characteristic, its own costs, its own percent complete. And all we're doing, and this is a phrase that I like to, I know I do want different colors. Here we go. We are doing work on this right here. That's the work that we did this period. And FIFO wants only that. Under weighted average, we have units completed, which includes any beginning whip and any units we started and completed this period. The whole thing. We leave it in there. With FIFO, we're going to subtract away the beginning whip equivalent units. This is 1 unit across with each box representing 10% of its completion. It's 40% complete. We're going to subtract away that equivalent unit, that 0.4 of a unit. And we only want to apply costs to this amount right here. Because what did we do? We finished that. We did 60% of the work to finish that 1 beginning whip unit. And we did all the work necessary to complete 2 more units. That's the work we did this period. This period's work gets this period's rates. That's the FIFO mantra. Last period's work, whatever was done, gets to keep its cost, which was determined by last period's rates, and was directly in, like through this business here, through that carpool lane over to the end next period. All right. So that means, like I said, here is the total equivalent units calculation, completed units, plus ending whip. I've arranged it differently here, just ever so slightly. So here, it starts with the first 2 terms that are the same as the weighted average and then adds in subtracting away beginning whip equivalent units. So in this case, we have 1 beginning whip unit. It's 40% complete, so we subtract away 0.4 equivalent units. And we would, I didn't quite do the box right. Total equivalent units in both cases also includes whatever work we did this period. Go on, ending whip. That's where we add in the equivalent units. Right there. Okay, and if I rearrange it, it looks exactly like I have up there. Units completed minus beginning whip equivalent units plus ending whip equivalent units, excuse me. And I know based on the order of operations, I don't need the brackets. The brackets are there just to show kind of how they belong together. It's to emphasize the idea of work done this period gets charged for with this period's rates. All right. Let's go down to steps 2 and 3. So FIFO step 2, total costs as defined by FIFO is just this period's costs. We're not going to incorporate last period's costs into this period's rate. We're going to keep it separate. We subtracted out the equivalent units in the denominator. We're going to leave out the dollar amount for beginning WIP in the numerator. So we just are worried about this period's costs. That does make it a little simpler, ever so slightly. I don't have to add two things together. Technically, that is one step, though. Now, at the end, when we have our rates and we're trying to apply to units completed, this is the figure that I updated. You'll be happy to know that ending WIP is the same. So everything you learned about multiplying rates times equivalent units in ending WIP, that's the same for step 3 of FIFO and weighted average. No difference there. For units completed, though, what I want to do, let me open a different instance of the textbook and put them side by side and show Okay, so with FIFO, with weighted average, we said, I'm going to take the rate, multiply it by units completed, and that is the cost of units completed. Very simple. With FIFO over here, we take the rate, we multiply it by work done this period, which is this business right here. The first thing that I drew. These are the units completed with work done this period. We completed the 2 units that we started and completed this period, and we topped off the beginning WIP units to finish them off with this period's work, so that gets this period's rates. It really is just that term right there that I put in brackets here and in the textbook as well. It's that right there. So it's, in this case, we had 600 units that were like 40% complete, I think in the example, with respect to conversion costs, and 20,000 units completed. So we took 20,000 units, minus the beginning WIP equivalent units of 340 units, and then we multiplied that 19,640 by the 15.12. And so now we have the dollar amount, the 296,975.81 there, is the dollar amount of this period's work that gets charged to units completed. And then we have to just add in the beginning WIP costs from last period's work at the end. I say just add in, but right. Now we remember to put that in. And we have 311,975.81 as our conversion costs for units completed. Okay. Conceptually okay? At least as speaking English, you can understand that part. Okay. So let's look at a problem. Let's go to 6-. We'll look at a problem in 6-3 and look at a problem in 6-4. I'm not jumping ahead a little bit, but I think it's okay. Don't need that. Okay, so we have our trying to figure out total equivalent units, in this case with respect to conversion costs using the FIFO method. So this is very similar to problems you saw in 6-1, parallel, except I changed that word right there to FIFO instead of weighted average. I could have changed numbers as well, but the structure of the question is very similar. And so in this case, our total equivalent units, now we're going to go over to, this is our FIFO stuff. We're doing FIFO to EU. This is a conversion cost question. So we have 9,870 units in beginning inventory that are 25% complete with respect to conversion costs. And I only care about conversion costs because it's asking me about conversion costs. So I'll leave that there. Yep. Thank you. 98.70, not 89.70 or whatever I wrote. Thank you. Our ending inventory is 86.15, and we started 123,000 here. Oh, ending inventory is 0.35. So as always, we figure out units completed first, same as our instincts have grown over weighted average, and we're just going to take the new equation and apply it. So that's units completed. The beginning WIP units times their percent completion is beginning WIP equivalent units. And the ending WIP units times their percent completion is ending WIP equivalent units. And so that minus beginning WIP equivalent units plus ending WIP is our TEU. If we were doing weighted average, we would just have units completed plus the beginning WIP units. We'd have a larger TEU. Okay, so that should be the answer to the problem here. Is that one of the answer choices? 124,802 rounds to, oh, if I get one more digit in there. 0.75, there we go. Okay, so that's step one in FIFO. We can use like 90% of our instincts from weighted average. Just remember, I've got to subtract away beginning WIP equivalent units. I've got to back that out, make sure I don't include that because I'm not going to take those costs and distribute it out. So I don't need to take those equivalent units in as part of total equivalent units. Total equivalent units now means total equivalent units that we did work on with this period's rates. It's much longer term. I'm just still going to say TEU, but that's what it represents under FIFO. Weighted average is like, well, whatever. It's work is work is work. It doesn't matter. This period, last period. Okay, I want a rate question now, so I can do step 2. Okay, so it gives us TEU. And it says this is the TEU for direct materials and conversion costs, just for simplicity. Now we have a rate question. FIFO rate, and it looks like it's for direct materials. So we have TEU of 6,324. And we have some beginning WIP costs. And whoa, that is a really low conversion cost. That's fun. I guess I set the parameters really wide for that. It's just randomly generated $6 of conversion costs. Okay, let me just copy all the numbers. 17,648, 10,988, 537,526, and then 6. Okay, so that's beginning WIP direct materials, beginning WIP conversion costs, current direct materials, current conversion costs. We are only going to include in the numerator, we're looking at direct materials rate, current period direct materials cost, and divided by the TEU. That is our DM rate using FIFO. I capitalized rate for fun there. If we were using weighted average, we would have summed beginning WIP cost in there. And then divided by TEU and get 87.79 instead of $85 as our rate. So you get different numbers, which means you'll get the question wrong if you apply the wrong method. That's maybe the punchline for you. Okay, so that's the right one. All right, let's look at this last step here. These questions are nice and easy because you can do the same thing that you've been doing in 6-2 and 6-4 when it asks for ending WIP balance. at least on that step 3, the last part. Just take the rate times the ending WIP equivalent units. No difference. Same as with FIFO as with weighted average. It's here that we get a little hairy. So let's try this. So this is a problem that says total cost of units completed and transferred out. A little hairy. Has a different method. That's what I'm saying. So we use FIFO. We have total cost of units completed and transferred out. So we'll do a FIFO step 3. Total cost. So we have direct materials and conversion costs. We have 50,000, 16,000, 3,500, 3,500, 4,000, 3,000. All right, so that is beginning WIP cost. That is beginning WIP equivalent units. And that is ending WIP equivalent units. And then we also have $15 as our cost per equivalent unit for direct materials and $4.50 as our cost per equivalent unit for conversion costs. Now, here is what we do. If you'll remember with weighted average, here, maybe you saw this pattern. The red's good. This is the weighted average definition of total equivalent units. And then on step 3, we multiplied rates by this to get units completed. We multiplied rates by ending WIP equivalent units to get ending WIP cost. Well, something very similar happens with FIFO. We're going to do a units completed question. TEU is defined as units completed minus beginning WIP equivalent units plus ending WIP equivalent units. And so we can take this, multiply it by our current period rates, and make sure we add in beginning WIP costs. And that gets us units completed cost. So let's look at that. I gave you the equivalent units in beginning WIP for each of these. So we have, I need to copy over. 80,000 is our units completed and transferred out from right here. Units completed. So units completed minus our beginning WIP equivalent units is we're going to multiply this period's rates by, because that represents work done this period. That includes work for units that we started and completed this period, as well as the work done to top off and finish off those beginning WIP units that were partially completed at the beginning of the period. It does not include any work done last period, because those beginning WIP units keep their costs from last period. We're going to add that cost in at the end. Okay, so I'm just multiplying this is what did I call it in this? This is the equivalent units with work done this period. I think that's roughly the term I used in the figure. And so this is cost for work done this period. But then we also have the problem of the first in, beginning WIP, is the first out. So that's also some of the work that we have to charge. Beginning WIP cost. We add it in. So that is our total cost of units completed then. Okay, so we have to do this step. Calculate what is the work that we did this period for this period's rates among those units that were completed, which means we have to take total units completed and subtract away the beginning WIP equivalent units. So we get right here, multiply that amount by this period's rates, and then at the end we also make sure we add in BWIP costs, is what that's supposed to say. Environment, my very, very bad handwriting there. And that gives us our total cost for units completed. Okay, so yeah.
See the formulas for the cost.
This right here? Right here. Multiplying the rate by that equivalent units. Okay, so again, the plan Thursday, we will have plenty of time available for 6-2 questions, and we'll move on to 6-3. You've got a preview of 6-4 as well with this problem here. There you go. Thank you.